Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. Enzo Maresca compares Neto to Estevao and the board back his decision to rotate the squad. BlueCo are one step closer to owning Santos. We have some more information regarding Botman to Chelsea. The Morgan Rodgers to Chelsea dream is over. And Atletico Madrid want Marc Cucurella. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 15k by the end of the season. You can also use the new YouTube hype feature, which pushes this video out to a bigger audience. Kicking things off, the Standard Sport have reported what Enzo Maresca said when it comes to Neto versus Estevao. He says, it's on the ball and it's off the ball. It's the two sides that Neto is doing fantastic. I think the other one that he's doing well is improving, and he's not going to be stopped because I don't allow him to stop and to drop. It's Garnacho. He's doing very well on the ball and off the ball, but for me, it's modern football. If you're able to just attack and you're not able to defend, you don't play many games. Now, I find this very interesting because we know that Enzo Maresca really likes Neto. He is the favourite winger. He's pretty much a nailed-on starter, in my opinion, if he's fit, because Maresca loves the work rate on and off the ball. And I appreciate the work rate because he does track back. You can almost use Neto as a wing-back if needed. Maybe he's not as good defensively, but he will get there and he will put a challenge in, and he's not afraid to do the dirty work as well as going forward. Also, his pace is just rapid. And I'm going to be honest, I have noticed Garnacho doing a lot more of the dirty work and being more willing to get back and get involved in that defensive play. Again, whether or not he's amazing at it or not is a different story, but the fact that he's willing to do that. However, I feel like that's a bit unfair on the likes of Estevao and Gittins because, again, they're adapting to the league, and we have actually seen Estevao get back and track back and put challenges in. I really like that. I think it's a very underrated side of Estevao's play, purely because we've not seen too much of him this season. We want to see more. And I feel like if you was to play someone like Neto on the left-hand side and Estevao on the right, which is what I put in my predicted 11 yesterday, I'm hoping we go for that against Wolves today. I think it'll be an unbelievably balanced wide players, because you've got the likes of Neto who can put the work in defensively and offensively, Maresca's favourite winger, and you know what you're getting with a head down, run past the defender, whip the ball in. With Estevao, you get that creativity, you get the chance creation, and you just get the flair and the confidence that guy has. He's fearless at taking his man on. But you also get the defensive dirty work. There was times this season where he's actually got booked because he's come back and taken one for the team because he knows he's read the game and gone, I need to make a challenge here. They're hitting us on the transition and it could be worse. I'll take one for the team. I actually really like the workload and the defensive work rate of Estevao. I think it does go under the radar. But maybe that's what Maresca is trying to get at, of like, for me, Neto does it the best. So he's doing it off and on the ball. That's why he plays so many games, and I appreciate that. But I like the fact he's highlighted Garnacho in terms of the work rate, because it's very clear that Garnacho wants to be that starter on the left wing. Look how annoyed he was when he got substituted in the other game when he didn't play too well. Look at the impact he had when he came on against Karabag and scores that equaliser. And it's the reactions to it as well. Garnacho, was reported yesterday in a Chelsea interview that he was like, yeah, I come on and scored and made an impact, but it doesn't count for anything because we didn't win the game. And I like that mindset of like, I want to come on and change the game. I want to come on and make an impact. I want to come on and actually be the player that, people look at on that left-hand side and go, yes, he's going to do the job to the best of his ability and he's going to make a change in the game. But when it comes to Estevao, I think this guy can just do everything. And I know he's young, and I'm hoping he gets more minutes. We all do. We're hoping he's going to start more. He's one of Chelsea's top goal scorers already this season, it just speaks volumes. You have to play him. But I would also give him a bit of leeway on that defensive work if there was an option to do so. And I feel like in Maresca's system, there can be, at times, a little bit less of the defensive work to do for your wide men if you've got other players that are willing to put in that shift. Estevao is that type of player where, just like Mourinho did with Eden Hazard, he was like, that guy isn't going to defend, so everyone else has to do twice the work because he's that good. You give him the ball, he'll change the game. Now, I don't think it's going to go to that extent with Estevao, because Estevao has already shown signs of tracking back and doing that defensive work. But I feel like there may be an element of that over time when Maresca goes, do you know what? He's that good that, yes, he has his duties and his job roles to do defensively, but it's less than what we expect from the other players in the team because he's so good going forward. So it'll be very interesting. I just thought it was very interesting to react to and kind of break down and get your thoughts and opinions when it comes to Neto versus Estevao. I think the play styles are very different, which is why I think if you're playing them on opposite wings, you do get a very balanced, wide play. And obviously with Estevao being so creative and being so fearless and full of confidence, and even doing that defensive work, I don't know. I just think, I know he's young, we've got to protect him, but I'm getting to the point now, and a lot of you guys are getting to the point now where we just want to see him play because he's so good. He gets you on the edge of the seat. He is young, and, he's going to make a massive difference. Whether or not he stays at Chelsea in the next 5 or 6 years or not is a different case. There's an argument to have there that he's going to go on and be such an incredible player, and he's already showing signs of how good he is. So very interested to know your thoughts regarding what Maresca said here regarding Garnacho's defensive work, Neto, and why he is the favourite. Because a lot of Chelsea fans seem to underrate or overhate Neto at times, and I hear it sometimes because he can be very frustrating, but I actually think he's a very good winger. And again, he's one of those players that goes under the radar in terms of the fitness record and how Maresca has, changed his fitness, because when we bought him from Wolves, he was an injury-prone player, and he played so many games for Chelsea, he's very rarely out. And then also versus Estevao, how he fits in all this of the on the ball, off the ball. What are your overall thoughts and opinions? Ben Jacobs at TalkSport has reported that Chelsea remain firmly behind Maresca and his selection choices, and feel the consistency the Chelsea manager is seeking will come over time as different player combinations are tried and young players mature. Kieran Gill has reported that those above Maresca are impressed with how he has handled rotation since taking charge. Internally, Maresca's handling of James, the club captain who can now appear in 3 games a week if required, has been appreciated. It has been a marathon in which Chelsea hope by the time it turns into a sprint towards the spring, their rotation policy will have them set up to go the distance. He continues to report, while there are supporters on social media calling for Maresca's head on a stick for the draw at Karabag, Chelsea are not panicking. They are not disappointed in Maresca's decision making. They are not suddenly questioning whether they should rip up a rotation policy because of one unfortunate night, or nor should they do something so knee-jerk. Rather, they remain confident that they can reap the rewards of their strategy once the season is further along. There's a lot to break down here. I think that last bit is very PR-y. If I'm being brutally honest, it's very much like, oh no, everything's fine, it's fine. But when you come to the rotation policy and what they're saying, that they're happy with what Maresca's doing, and it's not just to kind of feed into that. I just wanted to have a conversation with you guys about it. I feel like it's a strategy that the board are putting onto Maresca. Maresca is implementing it, maybe at times, or definitely at times, over-rotating for the sake of it. That's how it feels, at least. And we're basically trying to preserve people for the run-in of the season. And I understand the logic behind that, because we've got injuries, we've had suspensions, we've had less rest because of the Club World Cup. So on paper, logically, that makes sense. But in the moment, in the nows for the game, it frustrates fans, myself included, because I'm like, why are you rotating so heavily? So heavily. I understand rotation. I understand that players are not going to be able to play every Premier League game, every Champions League game. I fully understand that. However, there are certain players that are going to have to be rested a little less than others. But I understand what Maresca's doing in terms of, if we can rest as many as possible, they're going to last longer in theory. And then when it comes to the crunch time of the season, they're still ready, fit, raring to go. And other teams may be suffering a little bit where they've not rotated as much. So I understand it. I also understand that the whole PR side of it is they're not going to sack Maresca because people are crying about Maresca online because we drew to Karabag. There's a disappointing result. It's frustrating, but calling for him to be sacked makes absolutely no sense for me. He's won 50 games out of the 80 he's in charge of Chelsea. It just baffles me that as soon as we have a result that doesn't go our way, people start crying about Maresca and say it's all his fault. And yes, that you can definitely question his lineup. You can definitely question the tactics. Of course, with football fans, you could be frustrated and disappointed. But realistically, a draw to Karabag is not as bad a result as, I don't know, getting battered at home to Southampton 4-0. Like, if that was the case, then you kind of go, well, something needs to happen here. What's going on? But even so, I just feel like they've partnered some PR in there, basically saying, don't worry, they're not changing their minds, and this is their policy they want to really push. But I just think that where everything that Chelsea do, it's to the extremes of things. And I like the way that Maresca handles himself in the press conference. I think he speaks a lot of sense most of the time. There's a few things I have disagreed with over time. And I agree with what they're saying with the rotation policy. But like I'm saying, I feel like there are games this year where it's been over-rotated. And you kind of think, 10 changes? That's a bit much. 7 changes? That's a bit much. Whereas you could probably get rid of, depending on the opponent and who's available, you could probably do like 4 or 5 changes and still have a strong enough squad to get the job done. And then rotate them 4 or 5 or other 4 or 5. But at the same time, we're all armchair fans. We are not there day in, day out. We are not the ones dealing with these sort of decisions. But I like the fact that the club aren't sort of making any rash decisions. They're not just looking at socials and going, oh, there's been an uproar, we better change something. And I like that they're sticking to their gut, because they did this last season and we ended up with 2 trophies. Maresca stuck to his guns, we ended up with 2 trophies. And people seem to overlook that and go, like now, they go, oh, they're not worth anything. But at the time, we were celebrating us getting those trophies. So I feel like he has earned the season. We're not actually that bad. We've had some poor performances. Yes, we have. And we've also got results when we've not played very well. And I understand that. There's also been games we've been awful. Absolutely awful. And I feel like tonight's game is a must-win. It's going into the international break. We need to be picking up these 3 points. We're playing bottom of the league, Wolves. And yes, they're going to have this new manager bounce. Hopefully we can get over that. because then we have a rest period for a lot of our players in the international break. So maybe that's where a lot of the frustration is with the Qarabag game, that we rotated so much, because it's the penultimate game before an international break. Can you not just play your strongest 11 in 2 games in a row and then just kind of have that international break? Who knows? But it seems to be a plan that they're working on, and they're hoping, and I think there's a lot of hopium in this, process and that policy, that by springtime, and we have that run into the end of the season, that everyone's fit and raring to go. Only time will tell. I have a good feeling that once we have some of these big injuries sort of gone, that these players will stay around for a lot longer, because Maresca does like to rotate a lot. And it works wonders for the likes of Reece James, for the likes of Pedro Neto. Fofana is staying fit. Hopefully he can stay fit longer, because if he can, he's another one that gets added to that list. So there is definitely proof in the pudding. But it's just frustrating, if I'm being honest, because it's like, oh, cool, we're never going to get any sort of consistency with our lineups. And the board are basically saying, well, if we do it long enough and we rotate enough, they'll all get used to each other. And I don't think that quite works as well. You can't expect centre-backs to be constantly changing, but over the course of the season, because they've changed so much, they can play with anyone. That is a lot of hopium, in my opinion. Wingers, I get it. You can rotate against the opponent. Strikers, you can kind of do the same. The defensive midfielders, you can't really do that, because, again, you need consistency, which is why you normally see Caicedo and Enzo, and then if they need rest, we have the like-for-likes who are unfortunately injured at the moment. Wing fullbacks, I mean, look, you've got Cucurella, Reece James. Malo Gusto comes in, you can see there's a drop from Reece James to Malo Gusto, just because of the player versus player. Cucurella can get rested, Hato comes in, but there's a drop there because Hato isn't fully adapted. But you can kind of do that with your fullbacks. The centre-backs, I just feel like it's a position on the pitch where you can't really do that too much unless there is injury, unless there is suspension. To do it just to keep people fit, I don't know, it confuses me a little bit. So I think there's a lot of hopium in this policy, but I also agree to a point that it is probably the right decision with the amount of injuries and with the player suspensions, etc., and the fact we've had a lack of rest across the summer because of the Club World Cup. I think it makes sense, but I just think they're doing it to an extreme. But I would love to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Regarding this policy, do you think they're doing it too much? Do you think they're not doing it enough? How would you tweak this? What would your solution be? Because like I said, if you had someone like Caicedo play every Premier League game and he plays every Champions League game and he gets injured, what happens? We're going to say, why didn't you rest him? Why didn't you rotate him? But at the same time, when we are rotating him, we're a completely different squad without him. And you could say that for a lot of different players. Cucurella, Palmer when he's fit, Reece James, even Sanchez at this point. You go, please don't put Jorgensen in goal. So it'd be very interesting to know your thoughts about the whole policy, and let me know your thoughts down below. Aaron Ramiro has reported new in. Santos FC president Marcelo Teixeira is pushing for a minority stake model, potentially 30 to 49% equity for BlueCo in a move to safeguard club's cultural identity. Chelsea officials will travel to Brazil next week for direct negotiations. Now, we actually reacted to this in the middle of the summer. It came out of nowhere that Chelsea were looking to buy a big portion of Santos and make them part of that multi-club model. And we had a conversation about it. A lot of you were for it, a lot of you were against it. I'm kind of in the middle. I can kind of see from both sides. A lot of you guys highlighted some issues over in South America that I was just totally unaware of. Apparently there's a lot of corruption with the ownership and the leagues and things like that. Whether that's true or not, I don't really know, but it's interesting and fascinating learning and reading up about that, so I appreciate it. But from Chelsea's multi-club model, I think it's very exciting to have a club like Santos, because Santos is such an iconic club. It's an unbelievable club over in Brazil, as well as others as well, not to discredit any of the other clubs. But I think it would be an unbelievable club to have as part of this multi-club model, purely because Chelsea love trying to find South American wonder kids. And Santos is such an historic and iconic club. So much talent goes through there. I mean, obviously, the most iconic ones you have is the likes of Neymar, the likes of Pele, etc. And there's been ones in between. But there's so much talent in Brazil, and Chelsea are always keeping an eye. And yes, we got Estevao from Palmeiras. We've got Kendry Paes. I can't remember where from. Was he Palmeiras as well, or another Brazilian club? Maybe even Ecuador. I'm not entirely sure. Please don't shoot me for that. But there's just a lot of talent there, and I think if Chelsea or BlueCo are going to go get a 30 to 49%, I think that's fair, because obviously it doesn't mean we own them completely, but we have a stake model or a stake ownership where we can use it for our advantage, and maybe even have a potential where we send our loanees or the players that need to develop over to Santos, because it might help them there and help Santos as a club. The multi-club model is something I'm still undecided on whether I like or not. because I'm only looking at it from a purely footballing perspective. No politics or emotions or anything like that, purely from a football perspective. And in that sense, I do think it makes sense, because you have the likes of Andre Santos, who goes to Strasbourg for a season of development, has an incredible season over at Strasbourg, and the plan from Chelsea's point of view was he is going to be part of Chelsea's first team for the future. They batted away any bids. He's come into Chelsea's first team. He's now playing more. We'd like him to play more minutes, of course, but he's still part of that first team and he's not going anywhere. Kendry Pires wasn't quite ready. We sent him on loan for a development season. You got Mike Penders, who was in, was it the Belgian league last season, and now he's at Strasbourg. We're using it in that sense. Strasbourg are also getting an influx of players. Unfortunately for them, I do feel for them, because their best assets are being stripped. They can't really connect with players for long term, because they know it's just going to go to the best players are going to go to Chelsea. Hence, with like players like Amiga, we've already signed him, etc. Panicelli is also under the radar and under the microscope of Chelsea. Do we go for him as well? So I feel for them in that sense. I really, really do. But then if you was to add Santos into that mix, there's just another club, another side of the world, another culture, another league of football that you can either mine players from or send players to develop. So I think in a purely footballing sense and a selfish sense of being a Chelsea fan, I think it makes loads of sense. I think it's perfect. However, I do understand that it's not as simple as that. It's not as easy as that. And I don't want to disrupt. I don't want our club to be the reason that we're disrupting the ecosystem of other clubs. Because yes, even from the financial side of it, it makes a lot of sense, because you can cook books here and move things there and do this there, and it makes us look great. Again, it's great for the club. It's great for Chelsea fans, because we haven't got to worry about that side of things. But again, there's a part of me that doesn't quite sit right with it, because it's like, well, you're kind of limiting these other clubs of what they're capable of. Because if they know they get an absolute generational star, Chelsea come in and go, thank you very much, they improve us. And we like that, but these clubs are like, well, there's a cap. They can only go so far. So I'll be very interested to know your thoughts, because it looks like it's going forward. I don't know how reliable Aaron Ramiro is. He's been reporting a lot recently with some solid stuff coming out, which has been interesting to have conversations with you guys about. But regarding the Santos, we haven't heard about this in a while. Now it seems to have ranked up with numbers being stuck to it in terms of 30 to 49% of minority stake model for BlueCo. I'll be very curious to know your thoughts about how this would affect Chelsea, how this would affect Santos. Are you happy with a multi-club model, or do you want Chelsea just to leave these clubs alone? Let me know your thoughts down below. Court Offside have reported that Sven Botman's impressive performances for Newcastle have caught the attention of both Liverpool and Chelsea, with Arne Slot and Enzo Maresca each believing the Dutch defender is ready for a move to a bigger club. However, Newcastle are determined to keep hold of Botman and are set up to open talks over a new contract with the 25-year-old, soon a key priority for new sporting director Ross Wilson. Now, we spoke about Botman in yesterday's video in depth in terms of he has a bit of an injury history, how he's performing this season. Do I think, I personally think he'd be a great addition to Chelsea's team. I think he would be very solid. I think he's a very good defender if he can stay fit. I also had, like I said, with the injury history, and went, well, why did Chelsea keep going after players with dodgy knees? It makes no sense. However, I just wanted to touch on this just a little bit, because there's a bit in this I don't really like, because Caught Offside, again, hit or miss sometimes, right? The fact that apparently Slot and Maresca believe that he's ready to go to a bigger club, I think it's just very disrespectful. I think Newcastle are a huge club. And I also don't understand what's really going to happen here. Because again, we go back to the centre-back situation. I would personally take Botman, because I don't think he affects the equilibrium, the balance of our defensive line long-term when the likes of Levi Colwill come back, and Maresca wants that player of Colwill, a partnership of Colwill and Fofana together, and then the backup pairing of, I don't know, at the moment it would be Badiashile and Tosin, right? Or Chalobah. Badiashile, Chalobah maybe is that backup pairing. If you have Sven Botman in there, he can play in place of a Badiashile, in place of a Levi Colwill. But it could also open doors for the likes of Badiashile to leave. So he would be that Badiashile replacement. It could be that Badiashile stays and Sven Botman stays, because Badiashile is injury prone. But then you've got a left-sided centre-back who is more experienced than Hato and has played in the Premier League. He's quick, he's good on the ball, he's just a solid defender, he's experienced, he's at that perfect age cap of the age policy that Chelsea are looking for. I think it makes a lot of sense. Not that I'm pushing for it, but out of all of the people we've been linked with, etc., I actually think this makes a lot more sense. We're not going to go after someone like Bastoni. It's just not going to happen. They're going to want about 88, 90 million for him, and Chelsea are just not going to spend that sort of dough, because again, it causes problems later down the line. But at the same time, Chelsea are always looking to buy and sell players in every window, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens with our defensive line. The board seems to be very adamant and very happy with the amount of centre-backs that we've got, and saying, well, we just have to deal with it. even though Maresca's like, we need a new centre-back, said this in the summer, we're struggling now with inconsistency and suspensions and injuries, go get me one. I feel like someone like Botman could plug that hole, at least short term. With long-term plans, obviously, of keeping him there. But in terms of the immediate fix, you bring him in January, cool. I think it works very well. But it'll be interesting because if Liverpool were also sniffing around, they want a revamp of their defensive line. Konate's contract's up in the air. Van Dijk's getting a bit older. I'm not saying he's going to be leaving, but there's question marks for who's going to be his replacement in years to come. So there is definitely a lot of leeway for clubs like Liverpool and Chelsea to go after a lot of different people, be linked to a lot of different players, and it'd be interesting to see how many of them go to Liverpool. Marc Guehi's pretty much nailed on to go to Liverpool, but Crystal Palace said they're going to listen to loads of offers. It's a fresh, clean slate at the end of the season. They're willing to let him go for free at the end of the season to keep him for the season rather than losing midway through for some money, which I think is a very bold move to basically run your asset down to zero. But if they're happy to do that, great. But that also means more competition for Marc Guehi at the end of the season. And Liverpool are the front runners. So I feel like there's been a report we reacted to, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, basically saying there's so many good top-level centre-backs all having their contracts expired either this summer or the summer after, and there's going to be a monumental shift of defensive lines across Europe. And I honestly am now starting to see with the amount of links of not just us, but with other clubs, how this is going to be the case. Because you've got the likes of Rudiger. A lot of people were saying over on our TikTok and sometimes in the comments here saying we need to go get Rudiger. He's on free at the end of the year. For a free, it makes so much sense. And as much as I agree emotionally, I think, yes, I'd take Rudiger back yesterday. I think he'd be class. Again, I don't think Chelsea would go for someone like him, even though it is a good market opportunity because he's on a free transfer. He's played for Chelsea before. He has won a lot of trophies. He's got the experience. I just think he's too old for what Chelsea would look at. However, when you've got the likes of Sven Botman and Marc Guehi and others as well, like Konate as well, Upamecano we've been linked with, there's a lot of defenders that are at a high level that are going. So it will be interesting to see how Chelsea pivot this centre-back market because Maresca has even come out and said that we need a centre-back. We just need one. Go get me one. We didn't. Now he's saying, centre-backs, yeah, we're running a bit thin on these. Can you give me a hand? So I'll be very interested to know your thoughts regarding Sven Botman. I know we spoke about him yesterday, but with this coming in as well, does it kind of add any more solidity to you of actually this does make a lot of sense? Or do you think that he's going to go to Liverpool because Liverpool at the moment have more pull than Chelsea? The Mail Sport have reported that Morgan Rogers is set to sign a new contract at Aston Villa, which will take his salary beyond £100,000 a week. The 23-year-old only extended his deal with the club last November, but after a standout season in which he was named PFA Young Player of the Year, Rogers has established himself as one of Europe's most exciting young attackers and earned a place in Thomas Tuchel's England squad. Now, I know this is Aston Villa news, but he was heavily linked with Chelsea, so I thought I would react to it, get your thoughts and opinions, because I have my own thoughts and opinions on the whole Chelsea linked to all these players, Chelsea really like this player. This, in my opinion, is Chelsea missing the boat in terms of a player that they admire, they've been monitoring, they want to keep an eye on, they really want to sign, but don't want to spend the money on him. And look, this has happened before with other players, like Victor Osimhen broke down, and Morgan Rogers is one of them. There's a few others that we've just not gone in and spent the money for. We're going to keep an eye on them for next summer. Marc Guehi, he was available. We didn't want to go in for him. Mike Maignan, no, we're going to wait till next summer because he goes on a free. We don't want to pay the extra $3 million, which is mental in my opinion. And when it comes to Morgan Rogers, the dream is dead. He is not coming to Chelsea. It's as simple as that, because now he's got an extension and more money a week. Aston Villa can ask for even more ludicrous amounts of money. Now, me personally, I would be excited to sign a player like Morgan Rogers. I think he'd be awesome in terms of Maresca's squad and how he would fit in and how versatile he is in that attacking line. But I also wouldn't be happy paying £80-90 million for him. I think that's a lot of money for a player who isn't guaranteed to start for us, because you have the likes of Cole Palmer. And you have the likes of João Pedro. And yes, we've pivoted and we've got João Pedro who can play 10 and a 9. But it's always linked that Chelsea are big admirers of Morgan Rogers. We're keeping an eye on him. We really wanted to sign him for Chelsea. We've missed the boat. And this is the one criticism I have of this whole, basically target everyone on the planet that kicks ball. And, under the age of 25 and just see what happens. Because you miss out on talent like Morgan Rogers, who they genuinely valued and genuinely wanted. They should have put the money up to get him. But unfortunately, unfortunately for us, like I said, I don't think he would fit into the squad as much as I like the idea of Morgan Rogers. It'd be a great addition. Let's not get it twisted. But for 80-90 million, it's wild. Chelsea will need to start paying money for top-level players if they want to get them when they are available, rather than this hold off, and then miss them out. And we all go, why did you not just spend the money? Because we have the money. So I just wanted to kind of highlight this, that the Morgan Rogers dream is dead. He is not coming to Chelsea, or by the looks of it, unless Chelsea want to spend well over 100 million on him because of his new contract and wages. And I feel like this is the disappointing part of this transfer strategy that we have, is youngsters that are inexperienced, that we've never heard of, or youngsters we have heard of that are inexperienced in other leagues, that we can get on the cheap and hope that we can grow them for the future. And even Morgan Rogers, being PFA Young Player of the Year last year, he's only 23. He was amazing last season, and he's only going to get better, and he's already got Prem experience. For me, that's worth paying the extra money than paying less money for a person that needs to come across and adapt to a new culture, and adapt to a new league, and adapt to a new style of football. Makes no sense to me. So I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions regarding our transfer policy. Are you on board with it? Does it frustrate you? Are you bored with it? What are your thoughts on Morgan Rogers signing an extension? Do you think Chelsea should have just gone and got him in the summer transfer window? Or do you think we dodged a bullet in terms of not committing that £80 million for someone like Morgan Rogers because he wouldn't be quite the best fit for us? Vichades has reported that Atletico Madrid are monitoring Chelsea defender Marc Cucurella, but have no plans to make a move before next summer. The Spaniard remains under contract at Stamford Bridge until 2028, leaving Chelsea in a strong position to negotiate. Atletico's long-term plan is to wait until the summer of 2026 before launching a formal approach. Now, you guys know how I feel about this source. It's very, very hit and miss. Most of the time it misses, in my opinion. It's just waffle a lot of the time. However, I thought what they're reporting on would be great to react to, because it's a very, very interesting conversation to have. For me, I'm hoping that Chelsea can keep Cucurella for as long as possible, because I think at the moment he is one of, if not the best left-backs in the world. Incredibly consistent, integral to Enzo Maresca's system, regardless if he's overlapping, whether he's inverting, whether he's in the half spaces, whatever it may be. This guy's so good in that defensive three, out wide as a left back. I absolutely love Cucurella, and I'll hold my hands up. I absolutely hated him. Oh, well, hate's probably a strong word, but I massively disliked him when he first joined at Chelsea. I just think he was awful, and he's turned my opinion around as performances have gone on, and now I absolutely love him. And prime example of how opinions can change. But Cucurella is unbelievable. So just having this conversation of Atletico coming in at least this summer and having that formal approach of, right, cool, what's it going to take to let Cucurella leave Chelsea and come to Atletico? One, I think he would do incredibly well at Atletico Madrid. I think he would slot into a Simeone team so well. But what did Chelsea do? Because we spent a lot of money on Cucurella, and he has got a lot better, and he's been more consistent, and he has won trophies, international level and domestically, and world level, I suppose, with the Club World Cup. What is Cucurella worth in today's market? We spent around 60 million pounds on him a few years ago. Knowing how good he is now, how much in this inflated market, how much do Chelsea warrant saying, look, Cucurella is worth 80, 90 million pounds? Because I don't see Atletico Madrid paying that sort of money. And I know that they're trying to let his contract run down a bit, but I think Chelsea will extend it. I think Chelsea are doing very, very well with the wage structure in terms of incentivised increases, and I think they're doing the same with their contracts. You play well, we'll give you a longer contract. And I think Cucurella is one of those players who wasn't on the new wage structure when he was brought in. So obviously they're not going to do that. He's already getting paid a lot of money for his position and whatnot, and he rightfully so, because I think he's performing at a level of what he's getting paid for sure. If you can put a number on that, But in terms of his contract, I feel like they're going to quite happily extend that, because he's so integral to how Chelsea play, and he's been so good for so long. So I just thought it was interesting to have a conversation with you guys down below regarding this, because I don't see Atletico Madrid stumping up the money, and I also see Chelsea asking for a lot of money regardless of the length of contract, because they won't want to get rid of him. I also don't think that we have an immediate replacement. You could say Joel Hatto, great, but he's only 19. You're not going to let someone as good as Cucurella go from your system and then go, right, here's a 19-year-old who's still adapting, very good player, a lot of potential, still needs to adapt. Yeah, we'll just put it all on him. I just don't think Chelsea would do that. However, Chelsea do Chelsea things, so maybe. I don't know. But that means that we have to then go into the market and get another left-back. Then who do we get? Who do you get in today's market that's better than Cucurella, that's actually a realistic signing to bring in? Or do we just play Malo Gusto at left-back? Or Reece James at left-back? Do you see what I mean? For me, I just don't see Chelsea being in any position to go, yeah, we'll let him go. I just do not see that at all. And I don't see Atletico Madrid stumping the money up, because they want everyone for as cheap as possible. We were very, very lucky, in a sense, to get nearly £40 million out of Conor Gallagher. I don't know how Atletico made that, and it was only because of the João Felix thing that they were able to do it. Because normally they're like, oh, you rate this player at 60 million euros? We'll give you a tenner. And you're like, no. And they're like, well, I'll take it or leave it. They're very hard to do business with. So I feel like there may be an element of truth. Maybe Madrid are a big, what's the word? Big admirers of Marc Cucurella. They are monitoring his season. They are monitoring his contract. They love the thought of him being part of Atletico Madrid, but they're also aware that 2028 is when his contract's up, so they're going to wait a little while to at least have a little conversation, say, what's it going to take? Maybe there's elements of truth to that. I don't know. But in my opinion, I don't see Cucurella leaving to go Madrid unless it's for mad money, and I don't see Madrid paying mad money. So like I said, I'd like to react to this, give my thoughts and opinions, and have a conversation with you guys down below. Do you see Chelsea locking down Cucurella for a long time? Or do you see a world where Cucurella does get sold to Atletico Madrid? And if he does, how much money would you put on his head? How much do you think Cucurella is worth in today's market? And that's the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one. And I mean that, you're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.